Hello, Brian Benedus coming to you again, the author of Scared to Death, Do It Anyway. And as promised, and a phenomenal suggestion by one of my followers, if you will, is they asked me to read the book and talk about it at the end. And I started doing that. So I read the foreword a day or two ago. I've answered hopefully most of the emails. And today I'd like to start reading The Bridge, which is actually chapter 1. I'm going to wear glasses this time because I can't see. I'm 55 years old, and it's quite a long chapter. This chapter summarizes my life on the road. This is a book in itself, but this will give you an exact example of what people with crippling anxiety and panic go through, and how I was on the road selling and what I felt like. So we'll discuss a little more at the end. And please, if I make a mistake here and there, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to restart it and go on and on. I'm just going to continually read and maybe back up or whatever it is. But The Bridge, chapter 1. The soles of my best dressed shoes slammed against the deck of the bridge rapid fire. First right, then left, as fast as I could move them, creating an eerie echo matched only by the heart pounding with fury in my chest. My hands were clenched in fists so tight my knuckles were turning blue. My arms pumped frantically like the one blow molding machines back in our shop. My necktie was stretched back over my shoulder and stood straight out behind me, and the flaps of my suit jacket flailed and fluttered so fast you'd think I was some bird trying to take flight. Hot car exhaust stung my lungs with each inhale, but no matter how uncomfortable, I would not allow it to slow me down. If I didn't get off this bridge right now, I knew I was going to die. My eyes had barely closed the night before. Sleep was impossible. I tossed and turned as my wife slept serenely beside me, oblivious to the fact that the strong, proud man who was lying beside her was lost in the swirl of fear. But my anxiety had nothing to do with the critical meeting I was having the next morning with one of our biggest clients, a small businessman could ever hope to land. It was about the simple process of just getting there. I begged myself, please fall asleep, stop worrying. I planned to leave at 5:15 that morning, determined to beat the infamous rush hour traffic that collected along Interstate 95 every morning from southern Connecticut through New York. My destination was just beyond the George Washington Bridge in Secaucus, New Jersey. Please go to sleep. I know the truck needs work, but it will make it. It's summer, traffic will be lighter than usual, just go to sleep. Here it was now already 1:30 in the morning, and I had a few hours before I had to get up, shower, put on a suit, grab my briefcase, and pretend everything was just great. But the what-ifs kept flying through my mind. What if I hit traffic anyway? What if I lose control of myself or my car and crash into someone? What if I completely lose it this time? My throat closes and I pass out in the middle of the road. Go to sleep, damn it. You know where every blue hospital sign is located across the entire state of Connecticut. Everything will be fine. But what if I make it to the meeting and they want me to speak to more than 3 or 4 people? What if I have a panic attack during the meeting? What if I can't think of an excuse? So what if I just call and cancel them? I could just tell them I'm sick. And my wife will believe that, too, since she knows the kind of workaholic I am. I'm always run down. Just go to sleep, rest. You can't put your family and livelihood at risk over something like this. But what if? I left that morning even earlier than I planned to see how many exits I could pass before the anxiety became so intense that it would force me to get off the interstate at one of those blue hospital signs. Sometimes just getting off the highway for a moment and knowing the hospital was a few seconds away was enough to ease my anxiety level back from a 5 to a 3, help me catch my breath, and allow me to refocus on my day ahead. As I traveled further south, I knew traffic would get worse. It always does. Many people who live in southern Connecticut work in Manhattan and get up very early themselves to fight through the awful chronic congestion of vehicles. About an hour and a half into my trip, I reached the first toll booth. My anxiety rose temporarily, as I knew there was no way to get off, nor is there any help available once you are stuck in one of those toll lines. But I gritted my teeth and breezed through this toll quickly. So far, so good, thank God. I tuned the radio to New York's Fan, knowing WFAN, knowing they started the daily traffic reports at 6 a.m. I prayed they wouldn't report a stoppage on the George Washington Bridge, the only logical connection to Secaucus from where I was. So far, so good. As I passed through the city of Stamford, Connecticut, I started to see red brake lights ahead of me. Traffic was slowing. Farther ahead, I could see thousands of those red lights stretching out for what appeared to be miles. Red lights symbolize stoppage, feeling trapped, fear, panic. There is now nowhere to get off the highway, nowhere to get help, and nowhere to hide. I feel my heart start pounding. My anxiety level instantly shoots to a 5. I started to weave in and out of the lanes the best I could to avoid actually stopping my truck. Above me was a huge green highway sign pointing me towards the George Washington Bridge. I forced myself to follow it. Now there really was no turning back. My anxiety level rose to a 6. I held my breath and continued forward as best I could. WFAN reported that a tractor-trailer had overturned about a mile before the bridge. Great. Cars had now completely stopped. I was sitting on the Bruckner Expressway on an overpass that felt like it was 10,000 feet off the ground. Everyone around me was pissed at the traffic, but I'm way beyond that. I'm crawling out of my skin. My anxiety level is now at a level 7. It's now 6:45 on a warm, muggy July morning, and as the sun rises, so does the air temperature. The engine in my little Toyota pickup only has 4 cylinders, and I can hear it straining and sputtering. I quickly switched off the air conditioning. I cannot let it overheat out here, 1,000 feet in the air, in traffic, with nowhere to go, and only a million frustrated New York commuters available to help me. The suit I wore, the only suit I owned, was made from thick, warm, woolen material, designed for winter weather, and now I was sweating right through it. Traffic was barely creeping along, and the lanes were shrinking from 6 to 4 to 2 to 1. I realized none of these jerks were going to let me in. My front bumper came within an inch of the car in the lane next to me. The driver flipped me off. I swore, screamed, and flipped him off right back. I needed that human interaction so bad, and I was willing to get out and fight him, if necessary. The burst of anger was welcome, but unfortunately provided only temporary relief. I had now successfully left the Bruckner Expressway, and the massive George Washington Bridge ahead remained my final obstacle. I had timed it perfectly, but FAN now says the accident had caused about a 20-minute delay. My heart felt as if it was ready to burst from my chest, and I was drenched in sweat. My tie, which I loosened several miles back, felt as if it was retightening around my neck on its own. I am desperately trying to simply continue breathing and not pass out. My fists were pounding on the steering wheel. I was rapidly approaching level 8 panic. I've never experienced a 10, and I am terrified of what it would do to me if I did. Would I even survive it? My truck inched along as I finally reached the foot of the bridge. My throat was closing even more. Trying to pretend everything is fine, I glanced over at the driver in the car next to me and smiled. I must have looked like a complete moron. I could read the expression on this guy's face. What the hell is your problem, asshole? I know that the worst part of the bridge is the middle. At that point, there is no going back and nowhere to go, nowhere to get off except to plunge over the railing. Now I am so fucking scared, I don't know what to do. Every part of my body was shaking. I glanced down at the briefcase on the seat next to me and realized this is the easiest part of my day. I still have that big meeting at 10. Someone once said that in life, most of success is just showing up. Well, hell, that is my problem right there, showing up. Halfway over the bridge, I pulled out my meeting notes and started to shuffle through them, trying to concentrate on the words written on the pages and not the bridge. I begged my truck not to overheat. I looked down again at my notes and they looked like scribbles. I didn't even recognize the words I was reading. I remember trying to switch the radio to a music channel, then panicking when I realized that the station didn't offer traffic updates. I started spinning the knobs, momentarily forgetting how a radio works, and couldn't find WFAN. I have AM and FM mixed up. I'm eating up time with this ridiculous distractions, and now I discover I'm 3/4 of the way over the bridge. Ahead of me, the red lights are starting to disappear. Traffic is moving along a tad faster. My anxiety level dropped down to 7, then 6, then 5. I'm starting to feel real again. I felt the muscles in my throat ease and reached for a bottle of water. I tried to drink, but I still couldn't swallow, and now I feared I'll choke and drown. I think to myself, what the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I even drink a damn bottle of water? Why am I going crazy like this? People who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks feel and see things that others simply do not. There are thousands of bridges they drive over every day they don't see, but I see them all. People with anxiety and panic attacks notice and feel every obstacle. As I neared my Secaucus exit, having survived the George Washington Bridge, I began to drive over some other ordinary and anonymous bridge that was about 2 miles long and spanned one of New Jersey's many crossways below. I suddenly heard something. Oh dear God, please no, this can't be happening, not now, no. My engine had overheated. The truck had started to slow. Please, 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 let me get to the top so I can at least coast down to the other side. It was my worst fear. I was exactly halfway across this bridge, at the very top, and the truck had quit. I screamed, I started to cry. Though no one could see or hear me, I pounded on the steering wheel. I was petrified. I got out of the truck, leaving it in parked on the right travel lane, blocking everyone behind me. They all sat on their horns, waved angry fists, and cursed me. I was frantic and didn't give a damn. In fact, the human interaction helped, so I did the only thing I could think of doing. I started to run. Dozens of drivers in a confused daze watched me, 5'10" man in a white dress shirt and tie, sprint past them. I was humiliated by what I thought they were thinking of me. But it didn't matter. I had no choice. When I reached the bottom of the bridge, my shirt was saturated with sweat, and my trousers were twisted almost sideways. I'm sure the suit's designer never anticipated it would be worn for a mile-long summer sprint. My hair had matted against my forehead, and my cheeks were candy apple red. As I hyperventilated, I looked ahead for refuge, some kind of oasis where I could stop to try and relax and regain my composure. But ahead there was nothing but a sea of cars, perhaps thousands of them, and miles of guardrails and gray highway. I scratched at my face in frustration and terror. Suddenly, one of the cars came to life in a flash of blue spinning lights. It was a police cruiser, and it had worked its way to the breakdown lane to ease up alongside me. I could read the concern in the officer's squinting eyes as he peered at me through his open window. I looked like a complete mess. He had to assume I was being chased by some deranged psychopath, a terrorist, or some rabid wild animal. I was so engulfed in fear I could not speak. He spoke first. "Are you okay, sir?" 1,000 thoughts ricocheted around inside my skull all at once. I was sure the officer could hear my heart pounding or even see it pulsating beneath my white dress shirt. I could not let him see how upset I was. As the officer emerged from his car, I noticed the finger on his right hand where it slowly wrapping around the handle of his service revolver. I realized he could not possibly know what he was walking into. "Everything is fine, thank you," I lied. "Then why are you running?" "Oh, it's because of my pickup truck. It broke down on top of the bridge. I was on my way to get help, maybe a tow." I tried frantically to catch my breath and sound intelligent, but every word I managed to utter was a struggle. I assumed he thought I was sick because he kept asking me if I was sure I was okay. Let me say one thing here. There is one phrase you should never say to anyone suffering from severe anxiety and panic attack, and that is, "Are you okay?" It is an indication that the person notices and acknowledges that there is something terribly wrong, and it drives the anxiety up to astronomical levels. "Relax, you'll be okay," is another. If I could relax, would I be acting like this? It makes the thoughts in your head swirl until you think you're going insane. The stone-faced officer acted like he didn't quite believe me, sighed, then waved me into the back seat of his patrol car. For the briefest of moments, I felt liberated. Help was here, thank God. Perhaps I had found the temporary oasis in a place that intimidates most people, the back seat of a New Jersey State Troopers squad car that I could use to right myself. But sadly, this relief would only be temporary. because at that moment the officer uttered a sentence I would remember for the rest of my life. You need to stay with your vehicle until a tow truck can take you off the turnpike. A rush of pure hot adrenaline swept back through my body. I felt my red cheeks go pale. My throat closed again. I couldn't breathe. It was a feeling of pure dread. I believed I was going to die. He was taking me back to the top of the bridge. Puzzled, he stared at me through his rearview mirror. Are you sure you're all right? I'm just lightheaded from all the running, that's all. I'll be fine in a few minutes. Then I lied again and told him I had the flu. If you're sick, why didn't you stay home, he asked. I just started my own business and I have this very important meeting with one of my first big customers in Secaucus. Well then, you better clean yourself up. You look like shit. If he didn't have a gun, I would have told him to go screw. I have the highest respect and admiration for the police, and this officer was no exception. He was young, tall, steel-jawed, and in perfect physical shape. Obviously a guy who took his job seriously and worked out a lot. How could a fellow tough guy like me explain that I was weak, that I didn't know what was wrong with me, that I was so afraid of being on that bridge that I was running away so I wouldn't jump to my death? The patrol car was pointing in the wrong direction, so it needed to leave the bridge, take an exit, U-turn, then head back over to the other direction. U-turn again, then drop me off in my truck. It was the longest 2-mile drive of my life, and as each second ticked by, my chest grew tighter, my hands trembled faster. I didn't think it possible that my level of terror and anxiety could have risen beyond what I had already experienced that morning. But the fear was getting worse. I was at level 9, no doubt about it. Once back at the top, the officer let me out of the car and pointed at the ground. Now stay here until the tow arrives. As his car disappeared below the crest, my panic peaked. Instead of running north like I had done the first time, this time I decided to simply run south. It didn't matter what the officer had told me. I needed to get off that bridge immediately. The terror and panic that rolled in waves through my body was taking its toll, and exhaustion and paranoia were setting in. I started to see police cars everywhere, dozens of them. At least that's what I thought. Perhaps I was hallucinating. But before long, the lights from a second very real New Jersey State Police car were flashing in front of me, and another officer was walking in my direction. By now, I was sure I looked like a completely out of my mind, and if he thought that too, he would have been right. I couldn't have blamed him if he had pulled his revolver or even shot at me. But I was fortunate that this officer remained professionally calm, and we walked through the same conversation I had already had with his colleague, and he also insisted that I had to remain with my vehicle. And what if I don't, I asked. I don't give two shits about what you're saying. Lock me up. I don't give a crap. You need to either stay with your truck or you will have to come with me to the station house, he insisted. I'm sick, sir. You can take me back to my truck if you want to, but I'm not going to stay on the top of that bridge. There was no way I was going to tell him I was afraid. I was bigger than him, tougher than him, and I was not going to admit weakness. Tell him about my panic attacks, my throat closing up, or hospital exits. How could he understand that? I didn't understand that. Plus, it was somewhat of a strategic move. There was no way I was going to stay with that truck, and I knew that if I ran again, I would be arrested anyway. It seemed like a good idea to just cut to the chase. I was placed in the back of the squad car, and off we went to Secaucus, New Jersey Police Barracks. I didn't care about my appointment anymore. In fact, I don't think I cared about anything. But I was grateful. I was drenched in sweat and felt sick, and I knew if I passed out there, the officers would simply rush me to the nearest hospital. I started to feel safer. I began to calm down. At the station, I told them I was just a businessman with a fear of heights. I said I simply couldn't stay on top of that bridge. That was it. Heights. Afraid of heights. Yeah, right. It was the biggest lie of all. I wasn't afraid of heights. I was afraid of everything. I know I can't change the past, but I do have one wish. I wish I could go back and tell that terrified guy on that bridge everything I have learned since then, everything I know now, but maybe I can try. Where do I begin? I'll try and keep it short and sweet, as they say. if you notice, there's a few sections there where I paused because when I had to tell a story about one of my travels being in sales, this is one of hundreds. And if you come to my talks and we get involved in this, I go over that. The reason I tried to make it so emotional, is for you, the reader, who suffers any type of panic, any type of anxiety, fear, is to trust me. And trust is huge with people that suffer, because at the end you're going to realize that, just to let you know, I'm fine. My healing thought process comes at the end, because I need to build trust from the reader. Not clinical trust, not people that have read books and try and tell you what's wrong with you. That's fantastic work, and I applaud them. The thing that I'm trying to do is develop trust in the reader that I have it. I suffer from it. I've healed myself. And in the back, I'm going to say this over and over and over again. Heal and win. Don't just survive. Heal and win. Don't just survive. Because for the longest time, this problem that I went through was because I didn't know what I had. And I actually thought I was going insane. Suffering from panic and anxiety is real, but it's not going to kill you. And that's what this whole book is about. This part is me being a salesperson and what I went through to develop the company that I have today, called Ocean State Packaging. This is just one of the sales calls. By the way, the customer I was going to see, that was in 1991. They are one of our largest customers to this day. And yes, I willed myself. I do know how, by God's strength. I'm not very religious, if you will. I'm very spiritual. I do believe in a higher power, but I do believe that something willed me to get there. I'm praying and hoping that I can will you and help you and inspire you to get better. Contact me, do whatever you want to do, email me, whatever it is. Read my book. It will help you. It helped me. If you notice towards the end of that, as I was reading, I started to feel the feelings that I had that day. That's a very important day for me. I remember talking to the cops and so on and so forth. I remember the feeling like it was yesterday. And I remember not caring if they arrested me. I remember not caring if they shot me, because I really didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. So it's crippling anxiety, and it sucks, and it really does. So I don't want you just to survive. I want you to survive, and I want to inspire you to win. And win can mean a lot of things. So once again, that is only chapter 1. We got quite a few more to go. We're going to get into bottle sales, which is what I do. We're going to get into trips, my high school, all kinds of stuff. Please keep the emails coming. I'm going to concentrate right now fully on panic and anxiety and agoraphobia. And we're going to work with Bradley Hospital. Today is July 12th, 2016. And we're going to move forward with them, and I'm going to work with them on a non-clinical situation and in helping people deal with this, as educating people on how to help others deal with this. So stay tuned. Thank you again for listening to my chapter 1, The Bridge, and tomorrow we go to chapter 2. So thank you again. Have a great day.